Oh my gosh, I already know. Oh Lord, Lord, Lord. It was only a matter of time before we bumped into this. I guess you would kind of view this as passport bros if anyone's familiar with that movement or slogan. But this is basically the age-old 90-day. Well, actually, there's a bunch of stories that come out of 90-day fiance, and not always just one-to-one like this particular topic. But this is like one of the main issues a lot of people that are involved with the 90-day fiance type escapade or run into. And I'll just let the video speak for itself. Roll it.
Normally and typically in an Arab household, the man usually is the provider financially, and that's just how it is.
That is just something I wasn't prepared for.
Most Arab women expect that.
Just like most American people expect the woman to contribute half, or not half, just contribute.
But you're not dealing with an American woman.
No, but she'd have to deal with some of my things though too.
This was definitely not what I wanted to hear. I thought Moroccan women prioritize family over material things, and I was not anticipating that it would mean I have to be the sole provider for a household. I didn't sign up for this.
Oh my god.
Was this a clip from 90 Day Fiance or something, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry if that didn't make
I don't know how the show works.
Abundantly clear. I guess for everyone out there, it's usually like you're the one that knows stuff, and other people don't know in this podcast. But anyway, I guess to give the super TLDR, people that find love overseas or in different countries or in different cultures, they. This is the topic. This is the show, not just of the entire process. You find somebody overseas, and then the process in a nutshell for them to be able to live in the States is having like a 90-day. I don't know if it's visa, but it's a 90-day documentation that allows you, with that time frame to make the final decision. Hence, 90-day fiance.
That's crazy.
But
I believe they have to get married within that 90 days.
Oh yeah,
unbelievable. What?
People in different same countries get married in less time frame, but that's neither here nor there. So yeah, but as you see based off this clip, the problem with some of these scenarios is while people can build a maybe emotional or compatibility connection with somebody overseas, some things like culturally you may not be one-to-one in agreement with, like this scenario where we have, the woman was very explicit, which I appreciate her, because that woman thinks the way a lot of women think, especially when it comes to women overseas or different cultures like that, or, from Middle Eastern countries and things of that nature, is also relatively common in Latin American countries. As a guy, they're gonna expect you to take the vast majority be footing the vast majority of the bills, or be the provider, as a guy rightfully should be. But I think he's kind of stretching. Let me not assign what I'm thinking. One could argue he's kind of stretching it a bit, because even in the States, I think a lot of women would argue they're still looking for a provider, but you could clearly say that it is way more common for both parties to be working and contributing. Like you said, he's looking for someone to contribute. Period. Maybe not 50-50, but the idea of him being the sole provider, he's unprepared for. Hence, now we're in a situation where this guy's going overseas looking for one thing, because he's probably going overseas because women overseas tend to be, in some people's opinions, they have some of the features and characteristics that guy's looking for, but he just wasn't ready for the entire package. And obviously, this is a topic that can get really dicey, and people have a lot of hot takes on it. And I don't want to have the whole thing right now, but I figured this was a good intro to it. And I guess one of the first questions that come about when this topic comes up is the topic of like, when you go into a relationship like this, how should people move? And what I mean by that is when it comes to like adapting to different cultures. So basically, when you're looking for a partner from a different culture, not just maybe overseas, but different culture period, should you be ready to accept that person's culture? I.e., if they expect you to be the head provider or the majority provider, or do you think that person's gonna have to adapt to your ideals, especially if they're coming to live with you? Because that is what, based off this circumstances, based off majority circumstances, that's what it usually kind of comes down to. What do you think, Ace? Do you think this guy and guys like this are tweaking, or do you think he has a valid point?
I mean, he technically does have a valid point. I mean, if his ideal relationship or whatever set up as far as providing financially is concerned is a 50-50 deal, that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. He can have that desire, but it's goofy as heck to be finding out. He had to find out somehow, but you would think they would have talked about this, discussed this. It would have been clear. And you would also think that is something he would consider when trying to marry someone out of the States too, because it's like, I don't know, if you're looking for somebody out of the States, you are typically looking for something specific. Like, there is the general perception that women outside of the States are going to be
what are they going to be?
They're going to be less I don't know, like independent minded, more willing to cater to the man and cooking, whatever, cleaning, things like that.
Basically more traditional, if we were to sum it up.
Yes, sum it up. And you would also consider, I mean, in my mind, it would be, if they're expected to be like that, then they would also expect me to be the provider, because how are they going to do all that stuff if it's a 50-50 situation when they're providing financially as well? Like, that doesn't really add up. So
yeah,
I don't know. He should have considered it, but I mean, it's a show, so they got to play it up. But
yeah.
If he truly is just finding out, like, just in some random conversation in shops or wherever they were, like, that's silly.
Yeah, for everyone that's looking at this and thinking this is like completely like unbelievable. Yes, there's a lot of sauce put on stuff like this. Absolutely. I mean, just the fact that there's cameras in these people's faces, they're gonna turn up. But you raised a lot of good points. There was something I was gonna. Oh, but to the defense of the guy, I don't know if I'm really defending the guy saying this, but one of the things though, he wasn't the both parties contributing with just his general expectation, so that's why that could potentially have not come up. Like, if you have a general expectation that like your partner is gonna like make the bed every morning, and you can't even like fathom a world in which that's not the case, because you live in a world in which that's just a common thing, i.e. in the States it's very common for both parties to contribute to the household. Do you think he's really out of pocket for like thinking that was going to be the case?
I think so. I don't see how you could not expect there to be some type of conversation that needs to be had about it. Like, it's just not even in the realm of possibility, or like, to not even think about it is just kind of wild to me.
Fair enough.
I have a question for you, Ace.
Oh,
this isn't like a gotcha or anything. I'm just curious. Would you discuss this with a woman on, I don't know about the first date, but like about your expectations as far as paying the bills and doing all that, who's paying for what versus what her responsibilities are going to be in a theoretical relationship.
Yes, I mean, yes. Without without having had the actual experience, I'm just saying what I expect slash plan to do. I would say 100% yes.
Just wondering.
No,
I mean, I believe it knowing you, but
that's
just
absolutely
curious.
positively good question. We like good questions around here. Oh yeah, we're gonna go to you next, Wes. What do you think? What do you think of this? Do you think what do you think when it comes to like culture differences? Do you think the person going overseas should be more adapting to that person's culture, or do you think the person coming back home should be more adapting to that culture? And what do you think? I guess this guy's reaction in general.
No, I mean, I think both people have to be adapt or have to adapt to each other's culture because they're both accepting each other as
Who has to adapt more?
partner. It depends. There's no rule. Um, if you have a situation in which the one party has more non-negotiables than the other, then the person with
Who do you
the
think should be
more
coming in with more non-negotiables?
I don't think it. I don't think it's a. I don't think there's a science to that.
Not
Some people,
not
some, like,
necessarily a
you may
science,
have.
but you don't think
Let
there's
me.
it should be a in general for a case in which a person is choosing to seek a partner overseas, and then on the other flip side, a person is completely giving up their life in a completely different territory to come to another territory. You don't think there's any type of like guidance or like general way a person should go about that?
No, because at the end of the day, they're both making a decision. Like the person that has the suitor from overseas coming over to them to take them out of their country, whatever, they still have to say yes.
I
Like,
don't know if you agree if you really believe that.
okay, I mean, I think, yeah, I think the type of person to say yes is the type of person that's gonna have to. They're both gonna have to realize that there are a lot of cultural changes that they'll have to adjust to. I don't necessarily think that one side or the other has to, or should have more or less or whatever. If one person is, like I said, the person with more non-negotiables is going to be the one that has more or less flexibility, and if that's not going to work for the other partner, then it's not going to work.
Well, I mean, let's just look at the scenario in general. Do you think who's being more flexible just in the circumstance of somebody bringing somebody to a whole nother country?
The circumstance of someone, the person moving,
Right.
yeah.
So there is somebody that's less being more
But let's say,
flexible.
okay, let's say the person moving. Okay, let's say this Moroccan situation. Let's say that Moroccan person has watched nothing but American movies since their birth, and they idealize American culture. They love the lingo, they love the dress, they love everything about America, and they want to be basically, or they admire the culture so much that they want to be like.
Do they still adhere to the cultures and traditions of wherever they're from?
They may, yeah, they may, but just because they still are in that place. But they have
Because a
to.
person's not going overseas to look for somebody that's the exact same thing that they can find in the states.
Sure. Well, sure, but that person, so they might, they might dress a certain way, they might talk a certain way, they might follow certain customs, simply because they are still in that environment. But they could be very flexible in terms of what they're willing to change and adjust to. And once that person goes over to the US, they don't have a problem sliding right into the culture. And you have an opposite situation where they're very traditional, but for whatever reason, they still click with this person and they want to keep all their customs. And they feel that they even have a bargaining chip because they have to travel and leave their country. So they feel that they should be able to keep and uphold a lot of their traditions. And the person bringing that person over is going to have to weigh, they're both going to have to weigh those situations and those scenarios.
But if you're agreeing to leave an entire country to go somewhere else, you don't have this bargaining chip that you're stating. You're basically giving that person your not your entire life, but you're giving that person a high amounts of like authority over you if you're making a decision like that.
Um, No, I disagree. The conversations just have to be had. If the person says, "I'm going to go over there," but
You
I'm
don't
going,
think that if you're the agreement is that we're getting married and that we love each other and all that. But if a person says, okay, I'm gonna move to where you are to be with you, that just by the definition of what the agreement is, you are giving up authority to that person. You're giving your trust to that person.
trust, yeah. I don't understand what you're driving at though.
So that means if you give up your authority to a person, or if you put your trust and authority to that person, you are conceding things.
You're conceding living with the person in their country. That's it.
I mean, that's a big thing, and that
Yeah, it is a big.
and that like there's a lot of implications to that.
Yeah,
Because if you're going to live with anybody, even if it's just like you're going to live with the person down the street, you got to start to adhere to what their lifestyle is.
not necessarily.
don't
You
know,
still
bro.
have to have the conversation. If you say, "I'm going over there, but this particular custom I still want to hold on to," you have to have that conversation.
I mean, my point is obviously these conversations need to be had, but
Yeah.
I think,
And then
but you would
having
agree that
that
expectations need to be like tempered and realistic, right? You can't like say, okay, I'm gonna go live, or maybe you do think this. I'm gonna go live with you, but I gotta have X Y. I gotta A B C X like E F D W D. Like you can't get everything because you're by definition like forfeiting and agreeing to be on this person's program.
No, what? I think
The way you're phrasing it,
yeah,
Quest,
you're
is like
phrasing it
if you're
kinda crazy.
like you're gonna be living with
Listen.
them as a guest.
Listen,
Yeah, exactly,
you-
exactly.
Well, not necessarily. I don't know why you're getting the guest part, but you are going to be. You're attaching your person. You're attaching yourself onto that person.
I don't think that's the right way to look at it though, because it's a joint thing. Like you're making the
Exactly.
decision, but you're making the decision with the idea that you're going into this with the other person, and you're gonna be where if you're gonna be living at their place or living somewhere else, you're gonna be living together as a couple. It's not like you're gonna be going to their house and you
But
have to abide by their rules.
you're not just choosing to be a couple and living somewhere. You're choosing to be a couple and moving to where that person lives and under that person's like guidance and under that person's culture, essentially.
That's
Not,
I don't agree with
okay.
that.
Right.
What's
I
the difference
think you're going very
between? I
far.
mean, there is a difference, but if you were moving to a different state, I look at it the same way as that.
That's literally like a micro version of it. If you if
Yeah,
you
it's-
if you live on the East Coast and then you find somebody that lives on the West Coast and you move to them, you're gonna have to adapt to some. We're gonna have to adapt to West Coast things.
that's true, but
Yes, but that is only in so much as you allow. Like, if the person from the East Coast wants something that they did in the East Coast, or wants some that's realistic and something that they can potentially do, and you talk about it, they can have that. Like, you're. It's not that now you have to cede everything. Like, it's
No one
if you
said
have.
concede everything, and you can have your wants, but again, my question is more so like what's realistic and what's like is there some level of standard that a person should be looking at it from? You guys really don't you really don't see that? It is like you're just completely like you can agree to do this life changing like altering decision, but you can still have you should still have all your wants. Is that what we're saying?
That's not that was never what we were arguing. It was just that the conversations and the agreements have to be made in any case. And as I said, there's gonna be some. I mean, there's necessarily gonna be one person with more non-negotiables.
Okay, so let me ask this then.
And I'm saying that it's not on the one part or the other, or some mathematical formula where one
No.
person necessarily has more or
Maybe
less.
not mathematic, but there are some general like ways to go about certain things. So let me ask you this, and it's going to be completely hard to grasp because we're guys, so it typically isn't a 1-to-1. But let's say you were again like a vice versa, but in this young lady's shoes, and a guy, not a guy, sorry, So you agreed to get married and you agreed to completely move your whole life to another place. Would you go into that relationship or that situation saying, "Hey, okay, we're gonna live together, but I need this, I need that, I need this. Oh, by the way, you're gonna take care of this. I'm not gonna do this. You got to be on top of this, that, and that." Would you go into the relationship with a whole bunch of demands?
It's not.
Demands.
I'm asking Wes. I'm asking.
No. First, okay. It's not about demands.
Well, if you're going what they're looking for is demands. They essentially.
Well, hear what I'm saying. If you're going into a relationship, no matter where you are or who you are, there are things that you are going to have to come together in agreement on that are different on one side and on the other side. It's not about going there to bring your list of demands and like that's like a business relationship.
But you guys understand that there's business involved with, like, we're talking about literally.
Absolutely.
We're not talking about relationship. You got to think in the context of going overseas or a completely different culture. Like, that is the predominant factor here.
Absolutely. But if you have, that's why I say, if you have non-negotiables, you should make those known up front so that you can discuss them and see what is possible and what's not possible.
Okay. And I'm asking, because you didn't really answer the question, if you were in that circumstance, would you go into the situation with a bunch of non-negotiables?
Would I specifically?
Yeah. I'm asking you. I'm like, what? Do I need to ask the question again?
There are non-negotiables, yes.
Would you go into bunch? Yes, with a bunch. With a bunch and expecting them to be delivered upon.
I would go into it with just as many non-negotiables as I have for somebody in the States.
If you were going overseas, if
someone
was moving you,
yeah.
So you'd be like this woman, basically.
What? Oh, non-negotiables are non-negotiables. I don't understand.
I just asking a question. You'd be like this woman. You can say yes, and that'd be fine.
I don't know if that makes me like the woman.
The woman had some negotiables. She's like, okay, we're doing this, but I need this, and that. What's the problem?
Okay, sure.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just here to completely understand you guys' way of thinking. Even though it sounds good, I don't know if it's all the way there, but it's supposed to be quick anyway. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting I'm getting that way. I guess real quick, go. So what is your take on that? It seemed like you also kind of in line with Wes. You have some. You think homegirl's in the right completely.
Well, I mostly agree with Wes. I'll keep it quick. The way that I think she's thinking is, I don't think that moving overseas or anything like that should have anything to do with it.
It has a lot to
do.
You
can have your list of quote unquote demands or non-negotiables, all that stuff that's related to your culture that you're not willing to concede on. But I don't think that the fact that you have to move to a different state or different country, whatever, should have anything to do with your negotiations within your marriage. Because
exactly,
it's like I would look at, like you were talking about the list of non-negotiables. Would I ask that in this position as her? I would have my list of non-negotiables be the same with any woman if she was overseas or if she lived in the state we live in.
If they're coming to you,
it wouldn't make a difference if I was going to her or she was coming to me. That part doesn't have any effect.
All right, let's put some.
I think the problem. Real quick, I think the problem here is you guys are completely underestimating what type of I'm kind of surprised, but how much of a overtaking it is to completely. State to state is already a big transition, but to completely move to a different country with an entirely different culture.
I know. Let me say this.
You think it's going to be? If you really think it's realistic and completely ordinary for you to go in with every single one of your expectations that you would have in that environment, in a new environment, it sounds a little bit.
Listen. Let me say. Well, go ahead.
Say my thing first. So, the way you're phrasing it, it makes it seem kind of like because. And again, I
the way
know
I'm phrasing it.
Oh, let him go.
I'm,
Let him go. Let him go.
I'm not coming at you for the way you phrase it because I know what you mean, but it's like it seems kind of like you're under the impression that if someone has to go to a completely different country, which again is a huge undertaking, I'm not trying to undersell that, but you make it seem like because they're doing that, the person who's has to uproot their life and move to a different country should have more of a say, I guess,
Right.
in what concessions they're willing to give up or not give up because they're sacrificing more. I don't think that's the right way to look at it. I mean, other people might think differently, but just me personally in the relationship I want to be in, that the way I'm thinking about it is if we make a decision to be together and we're in different countries, we got to figure out a way to make it work, but it shouldn't be where, oh, because I have to travel more, then you owe me a little bit more. Where
right,
the flip side, if
exactly.
you have to travel more, I owe you. It shouldn't. And to me, it shouldn't be like that. Like that's independent of our relationship. Because again, what happens after the transitionary period and after they're acclimated to the new country, and it's been 5 years, they're cool and they're living in the U.S. or wherever, and then you like you looked at what I don't want to say negotiated because this isn't like a freaking business transaction, but
Again,
you look at the decisions you made at the time.
Specifically, marriage like this, there is business involved. You can't escape.
Yeah, I get. I don't know. You're right in that. I don't know how 50 to 90 Day Fiance works. I'm sure there's a lot of foolery that goes on, but in a relationship that I would envision myself in, I don't want to have to look back in 5 years and be like, oh, damn, I gave up too much because at the time they had given up more because they had to move and all that. So that's how
exactly. And when I say non-negotiable, I'm not talking about the things that you're like, oh, I'm flexible on, but I don't want to do this, or I do want to do that in general, but I'm flexible on it. And then, oh, well, I see that she's the one who had to leave, so I'll give her this or whatever. I'm talking about things like I want kids. I'm talking about things like even like this. I expect both people to be working at some point or most of the time. Like things that you cannot really, again, non-negotiable. So like, are these things going to change if it's in the U.S. or if it's in another country? Wanting kids, wanting the person to also contribute to the household in terms of financially, these things are not going to change. So if the person in the other country can't do it, then y'all don't need to be together. It's that simple. Like,
okay, let me see if I can get this out. And it's not even gonna be another way, but let me see if I can get it out one more time. And because I don't want this to be completely contentious, and I'm almost 100% sure you guys already know, but I am essentially in agreement with a lot of the things you are saying. Like we typically are. I'm just kind of challenging the thought process, of course. Okay, so what I'm saying is when you make a decision, it could be at a small level, as in you have to move states or move across the country, or even it could be as simple, because I started by saying culture. It could even be as simple as being like, okay, you come from I don't know, an Asian background, and then you're marrying somebody with a West Indian background, and you have to, if depending on which standpoint you're coming from, you have to adapt to certain things. So that's kind of like the framing. When it comes to overseas, because you gotta kind of, I'm not saying you're underestimating it, but I think you're still thinking of it like an idealistic situation where, okay, no matter what the circumstances is, two people should still come together with the same level of expectations and have their non-negotiables. What I'm saying is, when the larger of the essentially sacrifice, even if it could be like a better circumstance, because maybe they're gonna inherently have a better life in the States or whatever country they go to. You are making a sacrifice. So just by the definition of that choice, you are already essentially saying, okay, I'm giving up this, and by making this choice, I'm going to have to go somewhere where it's completely new to me, I'm not from this environment. I'm putting essentially my life in somebody else's hands because I'm agreeing to marry them. So, I mean, if whenever stuff goes awry, or whenever I have questions, or whenever I need to essentially like start to begin to navigate my life in this different environment, I'm gonna have to go to that person. So that the mind frame of somebody in that situation, it's just by the definition of what they made the choice is gonna be okay. I need to go into this with the more open mind, flexible nature, or else it is a less likely chance that it's not gonna work. That's basically what I'm trying to get across.
What needs to happen when somebody moves to the other person's country or whatever is simply that the partner supports them through whatever cultural changes they have to endure as a result of it that may not be comfortable. So
yeah, okay, I'm not
so let's say, I don't know, traditions or even laws or certain things are different to where that person is taken aback by an interaction that they have outside of the house with somebody who's in that new country. The partner's job at that point is to support and help that person understand what's going on and also make that person feel more comfortable. Maybe they can do something within the house to make them feel more comfortable. However, I think that the disconnect between what we're saying is I don't see that as the person welcoming the other person now having to break some of their non-negotiables over the fact that they're over wherever that person is, the person coming to the country is.
Well, I think I never said you have to break non-negotiables. If you have non-negotiables, I'm never going to be like you should break them. But you could argue you have to maybe not go in with a bunch of them.
That's what I'm saying. And when I say non-negotiable, well, okay. The thing is, non-negotiables are non-negotiables. So if you have a lot of non-negotiables and you're going to another country, that person has to fit the bill. If you have a few, that person still has to fit the bill. That's what I'm trying to say. So like, if you try to have a lot of non-negotiables in a place where people are drastically different from you, you're not going to have a lot of success.
Right.
Which is, I think, what you're not going to have a lot of success, but that doesn't mean now you have to change something. It just means you're not gonna get that person you wanted. So I think what you're saying is if you end up in a situation where you're already with this person that you shouldn't necessarily be with because they don't fit the bill, then you have to come in with less. Like it's a weird. Unless you're just trying to say that in order to, and it I guess it depends on the country and the culture, in order to even be on the dating market or to be appealing to some of these people, you have to have few non-negotiables. Maybe that's what you're trying to say?
I'm trying to say, if you make the decision, the agreement that, okay, I'm going to marry this person and go live with them and take on everything that comes with that, you can't go in like, because even what you were saying, like, the partner has to help them adapt to the culture and the land. I agree with that, like, completely. But on the opposite end, that partner can't come in guns blazing. They can't come in with, like, they can't come in thinking everything's going to be exactly the same or 100% like I perfect or idealistic. There are going to be some things that you may not like the way it sounds. You have to concede on. It just is what it is.
Yeah. I guess on the side of the person moving, they have to decide what they can accept. Yeah, absolutely. But that was what I was saying in the first place. Both people, when you have people coming
so we agree on that, and I guess I always add to that and say that person's expectations should be realistic.
Yeah, I mean, expectations should always be realistic. But my point is, from the beginning, I said both people are going to have to mesh and figure out the agreements that work for them, regardless. So
yes,
and I was just
that's advice that's in general with all relationships.
Exactly, and I was just saying that I don't think you can prescribe which one is gonna or should have more.
I am the person that's making the decision to move is going to, because just by the definition of what their choice is, they're going to. It's just like when you make a decision to like go to a different job, like there's different things that are going to come with that job. And if that job is in a different location, or maybe it pays more, or whatever the case may be, there's different things that come with that job. You just have to be prepared. That's kind of fundamental. What
but you're trying to quantify it. Like as I said, what if the
less?
Person?
I'm not saying anything except less.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see that. I'm just saying, like, when are the people?
It's not. There's less chance it's gonna work if it's not less. That's just what it is.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, you don't have to be like wishy-washy. If you fully disagree, that's fine.
Yeah,
but,
no, I do.
I don't think I don't think you have a solid point to stand on.
No, I know that there are people who are flexible and there are people who are inflexible, and it doesn't necessarily fall on one side or the other. More so or less so.
I don't know what that.
It's like you're saying that if let's say there's 5 non-negotiables on each side. Okay, then the person moves. You're saying the person who moved is going to be unequal.
I'm saying the person that moves probably should have 4.
That's what I'm saying. Okay, fine. What if the person who moved only has 1 to begin with?
That's fine. As long as it's less. Like I'm pretty clear in what I'm kind of illustrating.
All right, and what if it's vice versa? The person on the other side had 1, and the other person had 5.
If the person that's moving has more non-negotiables,
yeah.
I will say the thing that is kind of a variability here is you could. I guess that's what you were saying before. So maybe my apologies. The person that's like you're moving to, if they completely are very lax and don't care,
that's what I'm trying to say.
but that's not realistic. now you're saying that's something that's not realistic.
All right, what is it, impossible?
Oh, so now we're thinking, is it possible? Yes, it's possible that you find somebody that you can come inside the house and do whatever. You could paint the walls. You can literally like stomp on their furniture. Yes, you can do everything. That's not realistic though. A person probably can have some level of expectations and boundaries and like.
You know what? I have a case in point, or not a case in point necessarily, but like, I think you're not giving any or enough weight to the people who are very flexible, because a lot of times these types of people are like older, maybe less attractive men who are looking for.
Oh, now.
Are you saying that the simps are gonna get? Bro?
Now I'm rolling. You got okay.
So I don't know. I'm not saying that that's the only type of person who can be flexible.
Listen,
I don't think you're giving enough weight to that.
When you're right, you're right. Now you're introducing something. I get you. I got it. All right. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. I think I disagree.
Even women.
Good.
Yeah. It's more likely on the guy's side, but yeah, you're right. No, what are you saying, Ghost? He's right. He's 100% right. If you're a guy of like lower socioeconomic status and you're just trying to find love and it happens to be for somebody overseas, you're gonna be willing to put up with a lot. And especially, again, there's a lot of sauce in this, but if you watch the show in case, the show in question, is a lot of guys giving up life savings, giving up relationships.
Hey, no, I said I agree.
Oh, I thought you said you disagree.
I agree with him. I disagree with you. I said I think we're good to.
You disagree with what?
With your take. And that's that. I mean, I don't
want to like circle back on things if it's like a dud, but like what particular?
I thought we already talked about. We just went through it.
But you see how like in order to like get to the bottom of it, like Wes kind of brought up a very good like case in point in which like it could be the alternative. You're just saying like you're wrong. Is that what you're saying? I'm just wrong.
No, I'm not saying you're wrong necessarily. I'm just saying I disagree. I don't think that your take on or your viewpoint on how you should look at moving countries, cultures, and all that should be looked at. I don't agree with that. But I mean, you're not necessarily
for no
wrong.
other reason, but you just feel that I'm wrong.
I gave you my whole reason when we were talking about it. My whole point is that I think we're kind of going in circles here.
I think
we exited the circle.
Yeah, I don't know if it was along the lines of what West was saying, some of that wasn't necessarily 100% true, especially for a sustainable, long-lasting relationship. But
I mean, you heard what I said, what I was saying before, right? Like,
I thought it was just kind of along the lines of what Wes was saying. I don't think it was anything other than what he was saying, but I might be wrong. My apologies. But fair enough. Yeah, salutes to all. Well, and the crazy part, this won't be the last time we talk about something like this because, you know, a lot of people think that's like the wave. Believe it or not, it's like flying in love overseas. Cough, cough. But like I said, I'm sure we'll come back to it. Okay, all right. So there's nothing else on this. We can move on to the next thing. So believe it or not.